It seems that the people of the world who actually made the world what it is are the people that are forgotten. And those people that don't care about what's going to happen in the future are those people that have taken advantage of those that have built the world that they live in. Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. Ladies and gentlemen, I realized something last night as I was drifting off to sleep. Over the weekend, I've watched several interviews and podcasts on YouTube of economists stating what's going on and pretty much where we're headed to. So I was watching an interview with Leo Gans, really good guy in my opinion. He's been an economist for a long time. He knows what's going on. I love watching the Economic Ninja, and he's also talking about what's going on. He's pretty much into the economy and really good guy as well. All right, and also one of my favorites, of course, is Peter Schiff, and also Miss Lynette Zhang. So I'm watching all of these interviews, podcasts of these different, economists. I guess you can call them economists because they're talking about the economy. Some of them are like true professionals, that's what they do for a living. Others are like the Economic Ninja. I don't think he's like a professional economist, but he knows what's going on. He's been in the game a long time, and he's doing this on his YouTube channel in order to try to teach other people. That way they can prosper on the other side of what's going on with our economy, be it national or worldwide. And I noticed one commonality in all of them. And I just realized this. It's that when you listen to all of these people talk, they don't talk as if there is panic. But they also talk, being that they're economists, they talk about that there is opportunity. And when I started to think about that, I'm like, why are they not worried? And the reason is, ladies and gentlemen, although we are going to have an inflationary crisis, even worse than what we're having right now. And there is going to be scarcity in food and stuff. And what I mean about scarcity, I mean about physical scarcity. There will be no scarcity for those that can afford it. Because you see, all of the aforementioned people that I talked about here, and I'm not saying anything bad about them at all, okay? This is not like a negative thing on them. But all of those folks that I just talked about, that I was watching them interviews and or podcasts, they're not worried about what's coming. Why? Because not only are they preparing now for what's coming, but they will be able to afford to pay for food. You see, they understand that those that will be hurt the most by the incoming food prices and prices on everything skyrocketing are going to be those that are now hanging on by a thread, are going to be those that are living paycheck to paycheck. And so they are putting it out there so that hopefully some people will listen. But like I said, what I realized about them is that they themselves are not scared of what's coming, because they will be able to absorb that cost. Why? Because they've put themselves in a position, and I'm sure that this took years for them to do. They put themselves in a position where rising costs on everyday items, including those things that we need to live, will not affect them as much as it will affect the person that's living paycheck to paycheck, the person that is on the first rung of the ladder, as I like to call it, meaning that they're just surviving to put food on the table. So why am I making this video when my main audience is not people that are going to be able to afford, the price of things to come even higher than what they are now? Why? Because it is something that, in my opinion, and in the opinion of many, many others, is going to come to be. Not only has it already come to pass, but it will come to be at an even greater level. Meaning that right here where it says the UN warns that global food prices, which are already at a record high, And remember, when I talk about these record high food prices and coming food prices, it's on top of the ones that I've talked about in the past. And here they're saying already at record highs, could surge another 22%. And for reasons other than the reasons that we've been given up to this point. Which means that there are additional things that will be coming to pass that will make the price of everything that we consume even higher. So I hope that the little bit of information that I give you here, especially if you have not started preparing or are not fully prepared according to what you want to be prepared for, be it a month, 2, 3 months, or even a year's worth of food and sustenance and all of those things that you need in order to survive and in order to continue the standard of living that you are now used to, that you will start to prepare for those things now. Because for the common people, for the people that are working to make a living, to put food on the table, it is for those people that things will get really bad. And although on a lot of the interviews that I saw, and even on this article, it states that it is those countries that are already like emerging economies or third world countries that will hurt the most. Ladies and gentlemen, every single nation on this planet has rich, has middle class, and poor. And being that the middle class is being diminished, I think they have more poor than anything else. Those are who I'm talking to. That is who I'm talking to you, to the person that knows that if gas goes up to $10 a gallon, that you may not be able to afford to go to work. That if the price of food continues to rise at the level that it's risen for the past year, and especially the last several months, that if it continues to rise at that level, that there may come a time where you may have to decide whether to leave the lights on or feed your family. Those are the people that I'm talking to. I am not looking to make $1 million off of this, whatever it is that's going on with the economy, with the food markets. If you are a market player, all right, if you are a speculator in this environment, and I'm not saying that that's wrong. If you can go out there and make money as long as it's legal, ethical, and moral, or lawful, not legal, lawful, ethical, and moral, in my opinion. But that's not what I'm in it for. What I'm in it for is especially to make sure that my family will be able to survive this years-long crisis that we are facing, and that you, ladies and gentlemen, you, my fellow Americans, and my fellow humans from all over the world, that are the forgotten ones, that you are able to survive. And the only way, in my opinion, that we will be able to survive is to be prepared ahead of time. That way our labor, the labor that we have given up for pay today, it can benefit us tomorrow. Meaning that you have the things that you need now that can take you into the next several months, if not year or even years, if you're lucky enough to have the room and the resources to gather enough supplies for the next years to come. It is you who I'm talking to, because you have been the forgotten one, and you will continue to be the forgotten one. It seems that the people of the world who actually made the world what it is are the people that are forgotten. And those people that don't care about what's going to happen in the future are those people that have taken advantage of those that have built the world that they live in. So, ladies and gentlemen, please listen and please take action. Do your own research. But for goodness sakes, consider stocking up, because they're not getting any better. I'm going to go ahead. This is a very short article, but I'm going to go ahead and take you to the actual UN document, because although I don't really like to visit the UN site very much, I always give credit where credit is due. And I'm going to show you here where the UN is stating to you, is telling you in indirect words. They are telling you, stock up now. They won't say those words. The UN will never say, you will never hear any government say stock up now for the next few years. They will never say that directly to you. But we can decipher their words indirectly and see that that is exactly what they are telling us. The United Nations warned in a report released Friday, and we're going to go over that report, or a short part of it, here in a minute, that global food prices could surge another 22%. All right, ladies and gentlemen, and it doesn't matter why. Like I said, they're always going to find a boogeyman. It doesn't matter why. Here they say it's because of Russia, Ukraine, but it doesn't matter why. Does it matter why to you? Food prices are going up? Or does it matter that food prices are going up? And that's my point when I say it doesn't matter why. The FAO, a branch of the United Nations, said that food prices have already reached record highs and are likely to go higher. It states that the output of food production in Ukraine and Russia put together accounts for over a tenth of the global calories. And some people may think that a tenth is not a lot. But trust me when I say that if it even was 1%, that is a lot. The global food output of the countries has fallen since Russia invaded Ukraine in late February, resulting in a sudden and steep reduction of exports from both of those countries. And that the conflict has critical implications for wheat supplies internationally. I'm sure you've heard it 1,000 times already, that Russia and Ukraine are about 30% of the wheat exports of the world. Russia is the largest wheat producer worldwide, with Ukraine being the fifth. 50 countries, 50 countries, rely on Russia and Ukraine for 30% of their wheat supply. And they say here that many of those countries are least developed nations that have low income and have food deficits. The conflict's intensity and duration remain uncertain. The likely disruption to agricultural activities of these two major exporters of staple commodities could seriously escalate food insecurity globally. And here they finish it off by saying data released by the U.S. Labor Department on Thursday show that a 7.9% increase in prices over the past 12 months. All right, ladies and gentlemen. And I think we already went over that the February CPI index came in at 7.9%, which is pretty much their what we call their CPI, which is the inflation that the government is reporting. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the UN report. So this here is the UN report. And we're just going to read, you see this part right here that's in blue? We're going to read that, okay? That way, I'm not going to read this whole report. It's a whole bunch of pages. But here it says, the Russian Federation and Ukraine are among the most important producers of agricultural commodities in the world. Both countries are net exporters of agricultural products, and they both play leading supply roles in global markets of foodstuff and fertilizers. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, fertilizers is one of those things that many are not talking about. Fertilizer equals food. All right? Without fertilizers, ladies and gentlemen, we would not be able to enrich our weak soils that we've weakened over the decades with big agri, and we would not be able to produce as much of a harvest as we would with fertilizers. Where exportable supplies are often concentrated in a handful of countries, and those are like, I think, 8 countries in the world that produce and export most of the fertilizers for the whole world, Russia being one of them. This concentration could expose these markets to increased vulnerability to shocks and volatility. In 2021, either the Russia Federation or Ukraine, or both, ranked among the top 3 global exporters of wheat, corn, rapeseed, sunflower seeds, and sunflower oil, while the Russian Federation also stood as the world's top exporter of nitrogen fertilizers, and the second leading supplier of both potash and phosphorus fertilizers. You hear that, ladies and gentlemen? I think a lot of people are missing the fertilizer point. The thing that's going on here in the world, where fertilizer was already at a decline in availability and an increase in price. And now with Russia being the top exporter of one type of fertilizer and the second top exporter of a second and third type of fertilizers, what do you think is going to happen to the food production coming this year, 2022, 2023? They go on to say that many countries are very dependent on fertilizers, to include several that fall into the least developed countries and low-income food deficit country groups. And they rely on Ukrainian and Russian food supplies to meet their consumption needs. Many of these countries already prior to the conflict have been grappling with the negative effects of high international food and fertilizer prices. Many times I've said that people will starve. There will be starvation, and that there will be famine, and that we will have what is a resource problem. And that is what we're having right now. And that is what is going to continue to happen. Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you that may not think that this conflict is going to last quite a while, it has to last quite a while. This conflict between Russia and Ukraine, it has to last a long time. They're going to push it as much as they can. Never let a good crisis go to waste. And although this is a terrible thing that's going on, trust me, the Federal Reserve and the central banks and governments around the world, they've found their next boogeyman to enable them to continue to inflate as much as they can. Remember that inflation is the lifeline of a central bank. In the U.S., inflation is the lifeline of the Federal Reserve. That is what the Federal Reserve was put in place for, was to inflate the money supply. For nefarious reasons, in my opinion, but that is what it's there for. It inflates the money supply and it contracts the money supply. But the only thing that can keep it alive, the only thing that gives it any kind of meaning, is that it inflates the money supply. And when we have an excuse, either nationally or worldwide, for banks to continue to inflate, they will do just that. And at your demise. At the demise of the working people. In Ukraine, the recent escalation of conflict has already led to port closures, the suspension of oil seeds crushing operations, and the introduction of export licensing requirements for some crops, all of which could take on a toll on the country's exports of grains and vegetable oils in the months ahead. So ladies and gentlemen, go get your coconut oil, alright? For those of you that don't know, coconut oil will last a very long time on the shelf, and it is actually very versatile. And listen to this, ladies and gentlemen. Here it says it's also uncertain whether Ukraine will be able to harvest its crops during protracted conflict. Much uncertainty also surrounds Russia's exports prospects going forward. And I know that Russia has already suspended exports, I believe, of fertilizer and wheat, either for the next few months, or they may decide to do it indefinitely, depending on what happens over there. Given sales difficulties that may arise as a result of economic sanctions imposed on the country. And sanctions, ladies and gentlemen, is going to end up hurting those countries that rely on Russia the most to get their food. Remember this. All of these sanctions, let me take a minute with this. All of these sanctions that they're imposing on Russia, who is it really hurting? Are the political elite over there really hurting because they're sanctioned? Sure, one or two of them have had their $200 million yacht confiscated. They've had their billions of dollars confiscated from the banks. But do you think they had all of their eggs in one basket? Do you become a billionaire or a multi-millionaire by having all of your eggs in one basket? These people are not suffering. The people that are suffering due to sanctions are the average people, are the people just like you and like me that want to live, that don't want war. Those are the people that are suffering. So sanctions only work to hurt the people. I believe that sanctions are a wrong thing, and that they are done nefariously in order to hurt the people, so that then the people can rise up against their government. And I don't think that's right. That you should hurt a person and hurt their children and not allow them to get the things that they need to eat and to live, so that they can in turn turn on their government. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are all human beings. And what have I always said? When politicians fail at their jobs, who is it that suffers? It is the people that suffer. You never see a politician suffer when they take us to wars or when they sanction us. And I don't want to hear anybody talking anything about, oh, you like Russia better. No, ladies and gentlemen, I like humans. I like being a good human being. I like knowing that my fellow man, I covered this during yesterday's live stream. I follow a few channels that are from Russia. They're like blogs. They show us what their life is like, and they're really good people. Of course, every nation in the world has people that are bad. I mean, from every class of every country in the entire world. It doesn't matter. You're going to have good people. You're going to have bad people. You're going to have people that want to hurt other people. But in the most part, humanity is good. And why should we punish those that don't want war? Why should we punish those that only because they live in a country that we disagree with for whatever reason, whether we are right to disagree with them or not? I don't agree with war. I don't agree with invading any other nations, but why should we punish the people of that country just in the hopes that they will rise up against their government? Anyways, I digress. Last paragraph here before we finish it off. If the conflict keeps crude oil prices at high levels and prolongs the two countries' reduced global export participation beyond 2022 and 23, a considerable supply gap would remain in global grain and sunflower seed markets, even as alternative producing countries expand their output in response to the higher prices. This will keep international prices elevated well above baseline levels. Meaning what, ladies and gentlemen? Meaning, in my opinion, that you have till about this summer or so to really try to put as big of a dent in your preps as you can. Why? In my opinion, the biggest thing is fertilizer. Fertilizer and the export of foods from Russia and Ukraine. They're going to find out what their harvest is going to be looking like around summertime, I believe. They're going to find out what the harvest is going to be looking like. And I believe it's going to be dismal, right? And what is that going to do? That is not going to make food disappear from the shelves, all right? It's not going to make it disappear from the shelves. But it is going to restrict the food that does appear on the shelves to those people that can afford it. Having said that, thank you very much for joining in. Remember to be good to each other. When good people do good things happen. Remember to reach one, teach one, and repeat. If we all did this, the world would be a better place, and you know that it will be a better place. Many blessings to all of you and your families. I'm Alaska Prepper. I am out. A considerable supply